Hey there, guys. It's me again. Couple of updates. In case any of you are wondering, I have decided to discontinue the cam for now. I tend to, I don't know. I think that the lack of frame rate that my camera has, for whatever reason, is a bit distracting from what I'm actually saying because, there's that image that's kind of just jerking around everywhere, and so, for now, I think I'm just going to leave it at this until I figure out what's wrong with that camera or replace it with something that actually, works as a video camera and not a series of snapshots laced together. But I digress. Amazing Spider-Man 700.1 came out, for those who didn't know, so, if you're interested in reading some Spider-Man stories with, Spider-Man, again, good ones that aren't Dan Slott stories, there you go. I digress. This isn't about that, and I really don't want to start a flame war about that in the comments, but, those of you who know me know whether you agree with my decision or not, or agree with my judgment or not, that I recently did stop reading anything new that was Spider-Man related due to certain events. And I went out and I started to look for other comics, other things to read. I wanted to, find something new to read. And I figured I really don't want to keep reading in Marvel. I really don't, because, there's the odds of something crossing over, and honestly, all of Marvel's a little bit of a mess right now with the whole Marvel Now thing, which I think was really unneeded and it put everyone on really shaky ground, and a lot of writers are just kind of ignoring each other now and doing their own thing and, just really overpowering their characters or doing whatever and ignoring any kind of repercussions it would have in anyone else's story. So I think communications among the writing staff kind of broke down a bit, but moving onward, I didn't want to read anything from there. I think they have a lot to iron out right now, and I really think their leadership is part of that problem. But I digress. I also don't want to read anything from DC because DC's been the same. And the sad thing is DC has had longer since they relaunched, and they're still having just as many, if not more, problems than Marvel, which is sad. In fact, in a couple of ways, they're actually worse. And they've been pulling some stuff lately that I really, don't want to deal with. And honestly, it's just so hard to have a conversation in any of those fandoms as a result of that, because, there are people who like this controversial idea. And that's all it really is, controversial idea after controversial idea after controversial idea. They don't try to go for a good, solid narrative or story anymore. It's, how can we shock them next? They all go for shock value. Instead of trying to write a good story and be remembered for a great run, they want to write that one arc that everyone remembers. The reason that the death of Gwen Stacy, for example, is so famous, they figure, is because it shocked people. And it did. It was something that they didn't really think anyone would ever do. It hadn't really been done in a mainstream comic before. And to see that happen to somebody who was also, so young. And I think, that did shock people. But at the same time, it was really well written, and it was a good narrative, and there was, a lot leading up to it, and then there was a lot after that, that dealt with the ramifications of it. They didn't just have it happen and then rush headlong into the next arc. They made the ramifications continue even through multiple arcs. And I think that's really that's how you handle an event like that, It's like actually, breaking bad news to someone. You got to lead up to it, and then you don't just break the bad news to them and then leave them hanging and then, bring up more. You gotta talk them down from that. You gotta calm them down. You gotta give them time to adjust. You gotta ignore my dogs in the background. Oh my god. Sorry about that. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but I sure can. Someone must be at the front door. But anyway. So I went ahead and I started looking for something else, and that goes for Marvel and DC both, by the way. It's just, yeah. And so I started looking at some of the independent comic companies, and I rediscovered the Star Wars comics from Dark Horse Comics, and those are great. And I rediscovered, different titles from different companies. Found IDW, found 30 Days of Night again, reread that, but, none of it was really anything too terribly new to me. It's stuff that I was familiar with, and I wanted something, new. I liked the fact that it was familiar, but I wanted something that was also kind of new. I didn't want to go too out there. I wasn't feeling that adventurous, but I did want something that, was different from what I'd been reading. And while on IDW's website, I also found Godzilla, and, various other comics. But then I found one that was actually an old love of mine that they were redoing. And I wasn't sure how to feel about that. But I did get a hold of some of the issues, and I started to read. And that is IDW's current Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. Now, this series, it's not the TMNT you might be familiar with, if only because, how do I put this? Depending on where you come from, it's either going to be not quite as intense as you remember, or way more intense than you remember, or slightly more intense than you remember. Okay, how to break that down? If you are familiar with the Mirage comics, which is why I do kind of chuckle a little bit when people try to say the 2003 Ninja Turtle series is just like the old comics, because oh boy. But it is definitely a lot closer to it. It is, but it's still nah. But dang good for a kid series. If you're familiar with only the 87 series, I mean, the people who really liked the 87 series even thought the 2003 series was too dark and was trashing something that kids would love. They definitely find this comic series too intense. Don't even get me started on what they do if they read the original comics. But if you were really, really, looking for a good comic to read, this is it. It's not too intense, but at the same time, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't play around. Okay, it really does not play around. These turtles are very real in terms of how they behave. They're not comical caricatures. They have funny moments, but they're not like a caricature or anything. Fighting does happen, and it's not, blurred out with flashes of light or anything. If someone gets hit, they get hit hard. People are shot. People are stabbed. People are cut. They have weapons, and they do use them, and sometimes bodies do hit the floor. They try to avoid killing. They were taught to by their master, who wanted to leave their life behind him in the first place. And, but at the same time, they also, if they have to, they will. And they definitely still will slice and dice. You can cut someone and slash someone without, and even stab someone without killing them. So there's that. But it's an interesting thing because, see, they came into this recognizing. The interesting thing about it too is that it's commissioned the license by Nickelodeon, and because of that, a lot of people thought that it was going to tie into their TV series, and they do have a version of it, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles New Animated Adventures, that does tie into their. I'm not sure if it ties into it or if it's just a comic version of it and doesn't really play into the continuity of the show. I don't know how that works because I don't read it. But when they issued this one, they wanted something, for the older fans, for the fans who had been around for years, something for them to enjoy, and, leave the TV series for the kids. And that's actually a very reasonable and very thoughtful thing for them to do. They did not just, screw over the older fans and say, ha, if you want anything Turtles related, you got to come to this or go sit in Michael Bay's, we don't speak of what Michael Bay's doing there, but it's really good. It takes elements from the original Mirage comics. It takes elements even from the 2003 TV series, and it even takes stuff out of the 1987 cartoon. And it gives it a modern update. It gives it a slightly darker, or in some cases, occasionally not quite as dark, presence in the story. It all has flowed together so dang well. I really cannot say anything bad about this series. I can't. Oh, maybe it's slightly bad, but it's a preferential thing and not an objective thing at all. They do switch artists somewhat frequently. There's been, what is it, 28 issues, I think, so far? And they've had, 3 major artists. Now, for stuff like the Micro Series, now what the Micro Series is little character-based issues that focus on each individual character. Definitely helps with their development, and they are canon tales, too. But they really do help you, get into and understand this character and what motivates them, what drives them, what their history is. So they've been very helpful in that regard. But, and of course, each one has a different writer and a different artist. But, even in the series, they've changed a bit. There was Dan Duncan, I think that was the first one. He's honestly been my favorite so far, and while I don't like the others as much, they're still not by any means bad. They're definitely a majorly different style, but, they're not anything too terribly bad. You can have massive differences in art style in regular comics, too. I mean, look at when, Todd McFarlane left, and, look at the difference between McFarlane and Romita Jr. and Ramos, who's doing it now. There's massive differences. But at the same time, it doesn't really bother you too much once you get used to it. That being said, this story, oh my god, the story has just flowed together so beautifully. The Turtles' personalities are 100% there and 100% intact, and they don't go over the top with anything. They don't really play favorites either with any of them. They all have to work as a team. The reason that they've been so effective and been able to live as long as they have is they work as a team. They don't play favorites, so it's not going to be a case of... See, a lot of people when they went into this were worried. No offense to the people who do like Raphael, but that they were going to do what a lot of the Turtle stuff lately seems to have done, and do a lot of fan service for Raphael fans, because he's one of the more popular Turtles in the group, one of the more popular characters in the franchise. So they felt the need to pander to the fans. Again, this is no offense to the fans. The fans like what they like. This is a decision that, frankly, they shouldn't have made just for the sake of marketing, because while it does please them, it kind of alienates the fans of the other characters, especially when you unrealistically give someone an advantage or have something happen that wouldn't happen. Which can happen a lot in stories, especially, again, when you play favorites. But they don't. They didn't play favorites with Leonardo. They didn't play favorites with Raphael. They haven't played favorites with Michelangelo or Donatello. Each one does have their own role, and they stick to it well. Each one does also have their own flaws. And it's very interesting. And Donatello, for example, they've actually given him a very believable trait, being a very scientific mind, in that a lot of this more mystical and supernatural stuff, there's things in the story regarding reincarnation and, the Foot Clan, and he really doesn't think that the Foot exist, because there's not really any evidence to suggest they do, and it seems kind of wacky to have a ninja clan running around out there ruling the criminal underworld to him. He definitely doesn't believe in the whole reincarnation thing. The other Turtles... See, here's the thing. Leonardo, being very spiritual, does believe that. Donatello, being very scientific, does not believe that. And Raphael and Michelangelo are both kind of, in the middle of that whole thing. So it's very interesting. It's a very realistic family dynamic, too. They really do feel like family. They argue like family. They, relate like family. They talk to each other like family. They pick on each other like family, and it's great. The comedic timing is dang near perfect. There are so many, even if it's not a character but a reference to some of the older stuff, it is just so cool, and it is like a Ninja Turtle fan's dream come true. It really is. And it's really a comic fan's dream come true, too. It is just a very well-written comic. Even if you weren't originally into the Ninja Turtles, this is something you can get into. It has no attachment, really, in terms of what it's going to do to anything that currently exists. No attachment to the kids' TV series. No attachment to the Michael Bay film. This is just the Ninja Turtles. And it's great. It's really great. But here comes the problem, and this is why I kind of felt inclined to make this video. The problem with it is the fact that, alright, how do I say this? You go on Comic Vine and you go to all these comic sites and everything, and you read the reviews for it, almost completely positive each issue. Hardly anyone can find anything bad to say about it. Most of it, again, is preferential and not objectively bad. It's a really good comic. It just genuinely is. And you know, everybody out there is to a degree disillusioned, you know, with the big comic companies. Some people are swearing off them entirely and saying, I'm only going to read independent stuff for a while until they get their act together. And I can't blame them, really. But, you know, the big two companies being Marvel and DC. But, you know, they go out there, and for some reason, this series has just somehow stayed under everyone's radar completely. And I don't know why. It is just so well done, you know, nothing but good reviews, pretty much. It's, you know, it's consistently done so well, but people aren't buying them. People aren't, you know, investing in the series, and I don't know if it's because they don't want to buy a trade paperback, or they don't want to, you know, buy a comic, and so they just torrent them now. I mean, that works out okay, I guess, if you just, you know, want to read to see if you like it, or do that to keep up and buy, you know, as you go or something, I guess. But, you know, you can't do that nonstop and expect a comic to survive. I don't know if it's because they think it's too childish because it's Ninja Turtles, or, you know, they have fond memories of the old cartoon and they think they're ruining it with this. I don't know. I do think that one of the big problems is on IDW's part, and that's the fact that they do not allow you to buy, like, a subscription to the series online. If you want a subscription, you have to request one through a comic book shop. Apparently they give them the stuff to get subscriptions for people, and what happens there is then you don't even get the subscription mailed to you. They what it basically means is that they set aside a copy for you, and you go there and you pick it up, or order one specifically if they don't normally carry it for you, and then you can go there and pick it up. But either way, you know, that's a hassle, and there's a lot of people, sad as it is, especially in rural places, who do like comics, but they don't have a comic shop anywhere near them. And I think that if they were to open up that possibility and allow people to, like, buy a subscription online, you know, maybe I'm all wrong about this. Maybe they do allow it and I just can't find it. But I did scour that website and I really could not find one. I Googled it and everything. But that would be a major drawback. And, I mean, IDW really can't afford to not make money off of this. IDW's comics are, you know, they're licensed franchises. They're doing comics for stuff like all over the spectrum. They're doing 30 Days of Night. They're doing, I mean, some of this stuff's original, but a lot of their bigger stuff, their more well-known stuff that they're putting out is licensed. You know, they're all over the map. They do 30 Days of Night, like I said. Excuse me. They're doing a Godzilla comic. They have 2 lines of Transformers comics, and yes, they are Transformers. not movie Transformers. Transformers, it's its own thing. They also have one based on the old cartoon series, Transformers: Robots in Disguise. Or something like that. Is it Robots in Disguise? Or it's one of the titles. Same with G.I. Joe. They have a G.I. Joe series that's definitely for more mature readers, but they also have one that's a continuation, I believe, of the old comic series, which is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the one that was definitely more kid-friendly. And they also have, the Ninja Turtles. They have Samurai Jack they're doing a comic of now. They have the Powerpuff Girls they're doing a comic of now. But, they can only make these comics so long as they, have the license. And the license just isn't enough making enough money, enough of a profit to justify them renewing it, then they will just let it expire and cancel the series. They're doing Ghostbusters too. I think they're doing one based on the animated Ghostbusters and one that's its own Ghostbusters, or maybe it all is, and I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it's a thing. It's a problem. So, and like I said, people can't really buy a subscription to it, so they either have to purchase each issue individually online for like $4, which, is what it is, but then you gotta pay shipping too, which really drives the price up. Or they have to just wait for trade paperbacks to come out and buy those, which definitely puts them behind the current run, and definitely, isn't making IDW enough money fast enough, to be perfectly blunt. So, I really think if they were to do that would help their problem a lot. But at the same time, I don't even hear people talking about this series, and I just don't know why. It is so genuinely good. Possibly because Kevin Eastman's been staying involved with it and, helping along with it. So there's one reason. But I just wish so much that people would give this a chance. I really do. So I'm going to implore you guys to please look up this series, get some issues. If you want to, you know what, I'll even say it, although I don't normally advocate it, but if you want to download a couple of issues, download some issues, read it, before you make any decisions on whether or not you want to invest money into it. Though I would prefer you at least go to a comic shop and, read it there. At least that way they'll see people are curious about it. Then please, by all means, do so, but I really do think you're going to love it, and I really do think you're going to want to keep reading. It is extremely well done. The character development, the story flow, the characters, everything. It's just amazing. And I really, really do hope that you guys go check it out. At any rate, that's it for now. And I will catch you guys at another time. See ya.